Dear Lord, we thank you for bringing us together today. We ask that you will please help us to remember why we are here, that we are here to serve you, and we are here to serve those that we are elected to serve. We thank you for all the wonderful blessings you have put in our lives. We ask that you will watch over us today. We ask that you will protect all of those first responders who are out there always protecting us. We thank you for all the many blessings. We ask your forgiveness of our sins. In these things we ask and pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Would you remain standing, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States and Texas flags? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. For the clerk, I'm noting that it is now 2:06. I believe we began right at 2:02. It is February, I better look just to make sure. It's February 25th, and we are here at 901 Leopard, the third floor County Courthouse, and for the clerk's purposes, I do certify that a quorum is present today. At this time, Commissioners, I have minutes dating January 29th, February 1st, and February 6th that you've had an opportunity to review. Is there a motion to approve at this time?
So, second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Our minutes are approved. At this time, we will move on to board appointments. And you'll recall, Commissioners, at our last meeting, we had the resolution to form a Nueces County Advisory Board on Better Health Outcomes. This is part and parcel. Yes, thank you. This is part and parcel of our efforts here at the county to take us from a better place. Right now, we sit at 192 out of 254 counties on quality of life. I believe that we can do better. I believe that we must do better. And in that effort, I am looking to form a committee that will work with all our healthcare providers, our hospital district, and indeed our county to create not only a quality health improvement plan, but a reinvestment plan as well from our hospital district. So in that regard, I've thrown out some names. I look forward to hearing your additions. This is a committee that is very fluid, and you'll see that I just have designees because we're waiting for institutions to help. I'll sit on the committee. Commissioner Joe Gonzalez expressed interest. We can also rotate commissioners, so if you too have an interest, we can find ways to rotate myself off one meeting and you all on. Dr. Nestor Praderio. Dr. Praderio is a behavioral health specialist, in fact, a psychiatrist in our community. Estela Chapa with Christus Spawn Health System. Dr. Kelly Quintanilla, Pam Green, Cheryl McMillan. We would like to have a designee from Del Mar College. Driscoll Children's Hospital. It could be the CEO, Eric Hammond. Corpus Christi Medical Center designee. Been talking to Jay there as well. We'd like to have a designee from the Mental Health and Intellectual Disabilities. And also, it's been recommended that Belinda Flores, who's the director of South Coastal Area Health Education Center, serve.
Move approval, Your Honor.
Thank you. And motion a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Okay. We have some resolutions and proclamations that Tyner will address at this time. Tyner, it is Social Work Month coming up. We're still in February, but we're getting prepared for March.
Anybody from Social Services here? We submitted the item at their request. I'll go ahead and read it.
Thank you.
Whereas the social work profession is dedicated to enhancing well-being and helping meet the basic needs of all people, especially those who are vulnerable, oppressed, and living in poverty. Whereas social workers elevate and empower people, giving them the ability to solve problems, cope with personal roadblocks, and get the resources they need to succeed. Whereas the social work profession is one of the fastest growing professions in the United States, with about 110,000 more social workers expected to be employed over the next 7 years. Whereas social work profession is deeply weaved into our society, with social workers active in government, schools, universities, social service agencies, communities, corporations, the military, and in healthcare and mental health care settings. Whereas social workers travel across the nation and work to help people in crisis, helping them overcome such issues such as death and grief, epidemics, environmental pollution, natural disasters such as wildfires, hurricanes, and floods. Whereas the social work profession for more than a century has been on the cutting edge of helping create changes to make our society a better place to live, including the push for equal rights, voting rights, a minimum wage, and social safety net programs that ameliorate poverty and hunger. Whereas social workers stand ready to help our society overcome current pressing issues, including equal rights for all, the need for improved availability of health care and mental health care services, immigration reform, voting rights, and the environmental impact of global warming. Now therefore be it resolved that the Commissioners Court of Nueces County hereby recognizes the numerous contributions made by America's more than 682,000 social workers and hereby designates the month of March 2019 as National Social Work Month in Nueces County, and further calls upon the citizens of Nueces County to join with our Nueces County Social Services Department in celebration and support of the social work profession.
Commissioners, do you
So
have any
moved.
comments? Or
Sorry.
no, just
Move passage.
thank you. Do I have a second? Second. Having heard a motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor of this resolution, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Well, we'll get this to our social work department and share with them. You know, might be a nice thing to go ahead and post on our website for the month of March as well.
Okay.
Okay, great. Moving on, the next one is the next, I believe, three. Tyner, set the table for all the commissioners that these resolutions, why we're asking for them at this time, and just what exactly it is that we're doing in Austin with our legislative agenda.
We actually got fortunate to have a meeting before the filing deadline, at least, well, the March 8th filing deadline, which in order to move these forward, these need to be given to our legislators as support for the bills that we have requested to be drafted. Today we have three for you on specific bills. They're actually in Legislative Council right now being drafted. There's a couple of others dealing with Road District 4 that we don't know what that bill looks like yet, and we don't have a resolution today in support of that.
Okay.
But did you want to say something more, Judge?
No, I thought it was important to understand just the process. In other words, and once we get these bills and once they're numbered and they're exactly how we think they might be, pushed forward,
Bring them back.
you'll bring them back, correct?
Yes, with the bill number, and you'll get to vote on them at that time in accordance with what they look like. We don't know exactly what they look like yet.
Right. So I wanted to emphasize that to the commissioners, that this is in an effort to show that we have support at the legislative phase one, if you will. But this by no means is the exact way that the bills will look. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And-
Judge, may I ask a question?
Sure.
I think it would just be so important for the public to try and make them understand what this is.
Right. I
This
think
is
we
just
should
a
go
lot
one
of
by
words.
one. What do you think? Let's go one by one. Start the first one, don't you think?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
Tyner, start with the very first one, which is really, and I'm going to let Commissioner Modis take the lead because this was one that he advocated for.
Yes, this one, it actually became part of our legislative agenda formally at our February 12th meeting. Last court, Commissioner Modis requested this, worked with the county attorney on coming up with some language. He has since heard from Legislative Council some on this, and he may want to speak to that, but without confusing the matter, I think we should go ahead and adopt this resolution, and I'll read it, or if you want to set it up, Commissioner.
Sure, let me set up just a little bit. So, some counties throughout the state are using funding that they have to be able to support businesses in unincorporated areas that don't get traditional funding sources to help support businesses. So they don't live in a city that has an economic development wing that can provide grants or loans to those businesses to build up and to support that business, and of course helps build up the local economy. So because that's in place, even though incorporated areas are allowed, I got with our county attorney, who I appreciate very much working on this, to help us draft some language. It's just an addition. It's just a modification. It's nothing that hopefully will be deemed controversial on the state level, but it's just to allow municipalities that are under 10,000 in population to be able to be a part of this language that's already in existence. And so what I'm hoping to do later on this year is to put a pilot project together with some of the funding that I have to be able to support local businesses who can apply through a process that we're working on right now to shore it up. And this will screen businesses that have future goals for the businesses to support and build up their business, but may not be able to. So this language is created that it will allow us to include cities like Agua Dulce. Of course, Banquete is unincorporated, but also cities like Bishop and Driscoll, Port Aransas, Petronila, who don't have that economic development wing in their cities, but want to develop up their business. So I'm wanting to start a pilot project in Precinct 3, and hopefully if we see that it works, that's something that maybe we can develop countywide, Judge. And this would be a true part that how we can play in economic development, and really with the mom and pop store. I mean, we'd welcome any kind of corporate interest, but these are businesses that are put together by blood, sweat, and tears, and who manage on a very small profit margin, and like I said, don't have that ability to maybe get support from their local municipality. So that's why we're adding this one extra sentence to the current Texas Government Code that would allow us to incorporate those small cities in our county, and that so if we as a group later on this year decide maybe it's something worth exploring on a countywide level, that we can do it. But I want to start it off in Precinct 3 just to show whether it works or not. But it's to give us just a little bit more of a cushion to allow more businesses to be able to apply and show interest. So that's why we're going through all this. And yes, I kind of mentioned, got a call earlier this morning from Texas Ledge Council, one of their attorneys, and they're working on the actual language right now. And it's just what our county attorney came up with. It's just that extra sentence, but it's to include it in there and then to move it forward there in Austin. So really looking forward to hopefully having your support, and this would be another part that we can play, Judge. I know you talk about economic development, supporting our businesses. This would give us a chance, even just on a small scale, to help businesses maybe create a drive-through or create a paved area that maybe they don't have right now, that will really increase and entice more business coming to them, and of course turning that dollars over locally rather than going away to some corporate headquarters out of the area. So I hope that you all will consider it and support it.
Thank you. Commissioner, I also want to note for the record that it adheres to our legislative agenda that we've already passed, specifically number 4, increasing economic development opportunities for the citizens of Nueces County. So I believe it meets the criteria of our legislative agenda that we've already promoted and passed.
Would you like me to go ahead and read it, Judge?
Commissioners, is that all right, that we'll read the whole? Okay, please go ahead.
Whereas the Nueces County Commissioners Court desires to stimulate economic development throughout Nueces County by implementing programs that encourage investment in the county, including within smaller cities located in Nueces County. Whereas an opportunity exists in Chapter 381 of the Texas Local Government Code to establish community and economic development programs in Nueces County. However, the statute does not provide for such programs in smaller cities. Whereas legislation is being proposed to amend Chapter 381 for the purposes of stimulating business and commercial activity in the county, including an incorporated municipality with a population of 10,000 or less. Now, therefore, be it that the Commissioners of the Court of Nueces County hereby supports legislation amending Section 381.004B of the Texas Local Government Code, Community Economic Development Programs in the county, including an incorporated municipality with a population of 10,000 or less.
Thank you. Any further discussion, Commissioners? If not, could I have a motion, please? I've got a motion. Do I have a second? Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Okay. Number 3 is in support of an additional civil case fee for the purposes of construction, renovation, and improvements to courthouse facilities in Nueces County. Tyner, with your pleasure, I'm going to go ahead and take the lead on
Okay.
3 and 4 because I feel like I've got a good handle on it, but I look for you to supplement. Going back to our legislative agenda, I just read you number 4 in support of Commissioner Modis's economic development opportunity. I would point to general policy number 3 to protect and enhance county revenue sources. So, Commissioners, everybody's very well aware that most judges all over Texas are going to descend upon Austin on Wednesday to file their grievance, if you will, with the Senate, with Senate Bill number 2, which imposes revenue caps of 2.5%. This is a real strain on counties, particularly in times of economic disasters or natural disasters or need. And so I challenged our financial advisors, Estrada Hinojosa, to come to the county and give us opportunities and options that they've seen work in other South Texas communities where we could revenue build as an option only. And in that vein, they presented me with number 3. It appears that there is an ability to add on up to $20 to civil case fees. And here's the real important part. This is a dedicated revenue stream for the explicit, think of it as a restricted fund, to help renovate, construct improvements to the actual courthouse. We all, Commissioners, are very well aware of our situation with regards to chillers, elevators, plaster work, leaks, and such. And in that vein, I'm very concerned that if revenue caps were to pass, our ability to create revenue streams for us in the future might be incredibly limited. This is a permissive action. It is going to be up to Commissioner's Court if it were to pass muster, if you will, at the legislature, to come back to us, to have full public comment and discussion, and for us to thoroughly vet what our options are. But I think the most important thing to know is that it is a tool in our toolbox that we could just lock away if we want. But if we are faced with revenue caps, I think we need to be very realistic about the needs and infrastructure of this courthouse and how we're going to revenue build. You might ask how many civil cases are filed every year. I didn't know, so I looked. Turns out we're not as litigious as, let's say, Hidalgo County. So we're about 10,000 civil cases. Is that about right, Tyner? And so therefore, we're not looking at, enormous revenue streams, but it will shock you to know that with $200,000 plus of civil cases, you can pretty much CO about $6 million with that kind of revenue stream. So it gives us some flexibility in the future. I would just end by saying, I always learn what to highlight in class. That's how I studied. I would highlight that this is a permissive opportunity, but it's one that will close and will not reopen for 2 more years. In other words, I seek this, I bring this to your attention, and I seek your support so that we can have the opportunity, if needed, and only if needed, to create a revenue stream that would be directed to the infrastructure of this courthouse so that we can no longer defer maintenance and we can start tackling some of the problems that we all know exist here. And with that, I open it up to a motion and a second, and then we'll go to discussion. Do I have a motion to, I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And is there a discussion that we can have, Commissioners?
I'd like to comment.
Absolutely.
Judge, I understand what you're doing. I think you're being proactive, and I appreciate that you're being proactive because we don't know what's going to happen. But as for me, I can't support this. I know that I'm not voting on actually raising the fees yet, but putting it on the legislative agenda. But I just think we have got to educate the public. I don't think they understand what goes on here and how low of a taxing entity we are. Because I talked to some constituencies about this and and other issues, the next one coming up. And they're not happy. They think we've got all this money that we can take care of things, and we don't. But I think we have to do something. I don't know what that is, and we're going to have to start looking at the money that we're wasting, and I think there is money we're wasting. But we're going to be like the city, where you just put the roads and you kick the can down the road. And I think the county has done that for many, many years, and the facilities are going to have to be fixed. But I don't know if this is the answer. I'm not going to support it today. It'll be interesting to see if it does pass, but I appreciate, Judge, what you're trying to do.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
You know,
Commissioner?
I move to make my motion because, and I agree with Commissioner Wong, what she's saying, that, we tax people here left and right, but I think that the education we have to give them is that we're not actually voting on anything right now. We're not voting to raise anything or to add any fees to any kind of civil cases right now. Legislation won't meet for another 2 years after this one here. So this will give us an open door to say, do we need to go back to the drawing table and say, what do we need to do? Raise it $5, raise it $7, raise it $10? We would have that option to do that if we have to, based on the revenues that that come into this county. Right now, our revenues are not where they should be, and if we don't have any answers to how we're going to do it, then I think this is just a small part of the solution that we need to start thinking and putting things on the table that we can come back to and use them as a tool if we have to. Nobody wants to add more fees, because all is all for the taxpayers, and I agree with you. But unfortunately, we're here now, and we got to think of some things to do before we find ourselves that we can't do anything because there's no legislation that's going to come up next year. And so where do we go from there? Do we just raise taxes again? And that's the end to everything is raising taxes at the end, because you ain't going to get no more revenues than you're getting now. And I understand that nobody wants to do this, but I think that the education, you're right. I think I want to vote for this to go on the table, but I agree we need to do more educating the people of what we're doing and why we're doing it, and coming down the line, just because we're saying up to $20 don't mean it's going to be $20, because it don't mean it can be $10. It could be 5, 10, 7. It all depends on where we at that time and what we think we need. So, people keep asking us to do this. The courthouse needs a lot of fixing. We got a lot of issues in the courthouse people don't know about. We have the shoulders, and we have the skylines, and we have everything that's starting to need repairs. And unfortunately, we just don't have the money to do it. And so we got to find that money. And I think to being a little bit proactive is good. But we do have to educate the people of why we're doing it and where we're at. And it's not about just raising it because we want to raise it. So, and that's my opinion on that. So I think we should at least set ourselves straight. I made the motion, so I think it's a good thing that we try to stay proactive on this issue.
Judge, if I might, I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not sure if either of these two are the right things to do. But in the vein of the concept of having another tool in your belt, that does ring for me, and I hope we'll remember that concept as we talk about other issues that are on our agenda today, because just because something is passed at the legislature, since it is a permissive type situation, we still have to vote on it again. I'm inclined only because of the concept of if we don't do it now, then we don't even have an option. Being honest, I'll probably vote to push it forward, but unless someone can convince me that this is necessary and is a cost of doing business in a manner that we need, I don't know that I'll vote for it the next time around. But I don't know that I won't. And I think the analysis needs to be done on both 3 and 4 of what's it costing us to do these things, especially 4. And I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but they're both kind of in the same vein, because we need to figure out ways to make this courthouse better and not always look for bonds, or if we have to look for bonds because we have a revenue stream, great, that's a concept. So I'm not adverse to looking at it, but what I really would like to see is an analysis, and I plan on, especially on number 4, getting with our tax assessor collector who does all this, right? He does motor vehicle registration. And I'd like him to tell me what the cost of doing business is, because if we're not charging the cost of doing business, then I don't think we ought to be subsidizing the cost of doing business either. So that's going to be what's going to be compelling for me going forward on these 2, and especially number 4, is it a fair and justifiable fee based on the cost of doing business? We did this with the constables, and using that example, and the fee, not the constables, the fees that we do on the collections.
The citation.
On the citations, and Constable Clark came forward 2 years ago and said, hey, we're not charging enough, we haven't charged, and we didn't have time because he came real quick, and then he came the second time because I said, we reminded him, hey, remember, do this, give us some time next year to digest it. Well, once we went to the auditor and said, okay, auditor, here's what we're charging, what's the cost of doing business? Oh my gosh, we were so much under charging, it was ridiculous, and I didn't have any problems voting for that increase because I think government needs to pay for itself at the very least, and we weren't in that. So I don't know what the analysis is going to show on these 2 going forward, but I do agree with the concept of saying, okay, if we don't do it now, then we're out of luck for 2 years, just like I'm going to agree on another one on this agenda that we ought to at least look at under the same vein, and I hope the court will keep that in mind as we go forward, because just because you put something forward to the legislature doesn't mean you have to use it. We all may vote this down. This may come back and we all may vote it down, but if we don't have the option, we know we're fixing to get more unfunded mandates. We're getting tax capped. If we weren't continually getting hammered by the state legislature, then I probably would vote against these today as well, but we continually get hammered by the legislature, and they continually tell us, do more with less money, and I don't know what else to do either. So again, in the end, I may not support either one of these, but I appreciate the fact that the judge is being proactive and looking for different things, and again, don't take my vote today as a vote for it the next time, but I'm going to vote just because I think we need to have the tool in the shed, and I think local government needs to have as many tools as they can because we know the legislature is going to hammer us. So I'm okay with these with a lengthy explanation, a lot of explanation, but it doesn't mean I'm voting for them when it comes back the next time. I just want to be clear on that. So
Yeah, duly noted. And the financial analysis really is going to be key here. I really think everything you said would be echoed by me as well. Tyner, just because I think it's important to hear the words, would you mind, is that all right, commissioners? I think he should read it because we have public. Please go ahead.
Okay, whereas.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Commissioner Modis had not had a chance to weigh in. Forgive me. John?
I think a gut reaction also is to say, why are we going to add on an extra fee? Now, it is a user fee, so it's not going to be implemented county-wide, so I think that that's something that the community should understand, but also that this is, I agree, totally another tool in our belt, so to speak, that we can access and really need to justify. And so I'm with that we need to move forward on this and ask for this legislation to happen because we are running on a deadline up really until next week that we have to be able to approve or ask for anything in Austin, or we have to wait 2 more years. So I don't want to put us out 2 years of looking at another opportunity to be able to have funding that's very specific. And I think that that's what we need to be very purposeful about, is that this is specific in dealing with improvements that we need here at the courthouse, at the current courthouse. If you want to talk about if you leave it in disrepair, look at the old courthouse. We need to maintain what we have now, and so the way to do that is be able to say, do we have access to be able to create a fee that helps support that? So I'm totally in favor of having that additional resource to look at and to vote upon and to be able to explain and justify to the community if we need to do that. But this is giving us the stability, like you said, Judge, and several others have said, we are dealing with challenges in Austin right now that we are not going to have much room at all to be able to operate our government, even as we have been self-described and described by others outside this community as one of the most conservatively run on the fiscal side of governments, county governments in the state. If you look at our rates, if you look at what we bring in, compare us to other counties similar size or even smaller, and we are much less. So I do support that we move forward on these two items and that we support them to at least have discussion in the future. And then we can take it and really go into it and allow for community input to give us their thoughts on that. But and to be able to allow staff to justify, is this what we need and how is it going to be used? Because I think our community is very understanding if we're specific on how we're going to use it, why we're going to use it, and to be able to match those numbers up. And so by doing that, I think that will give us that chance. But I'm asking that we do support it so that we move forward on this so we can have those future discussions. So.
And Judge, if I can go back, I appreciate that. Tyner, I would really, and I will be happy to, but I would really appreciate if you would reach out to Kevin Kieschnick, because I assure you he has an opinion on this, and his probably whole association has an opinion on this, as whether or not some of this is even can be done, should be done, I get it, it's just his opinion, but it's a very important opinion in my opinion in this discussion, because this is what he does. So, Judge, if it's okay, I would really like it to be part of the legislative intent as we're passing this, that our tax assessor collector is fully engaged in this conversation, because this is what he does, just as though I would want if it was going to affect something in Kara's office or the DA's office or anybody's office.
I did talk to Kevin, and he said, as long as you use it to what you said you're going to use it for and don't deviate from that, you're okay. But some of these can only go for construction infrastructure. Other can only go for roads and drainage and bridges. So he said, don't deviate from that. As long as you don't deviate from that, you're okay. But you can't start saying, we're going to use it for this and start using it for something else. Then you got issues.
And we're still dealing with the civil case fee, but.
I know we're branching out a little bit, but absolutely. And I think actually we had already had that discussion, Tyner and I, over several weeks ago about doing that. So we're going to make sure that he's brought into the fold on this.
And certainly the civil case fee, I guess we should have just some discussions with Ms. Lorenzen on that,
Right.
because.
I did.
Okay.
I notified her of what we were doing, and she did not seem very objectionable at all.
As did I.
I appreciate that.
Kind of getting us back, we'll read and then we'll take our vote.
Whereas the Nueces County Commissioners Court is in the process of creating a capital improvement program for the long-term needs of the county with regard to important infrastructure projects, including construction, renovation, or improvement of its county facilities, including the Nueces County Courthouse. Whereas Nueces County ad valorem taxes have consistently been maintained at a low rate over past budget years and historically been insufficient to fund significant construction, renovations, or improvement of county facilities. Whereas in order to generate revenue for such a capital improvement program, funding sources such as an additional civil case filing fee must be legislatively established. Whereas an additional civil case fee not to exceed $20 for each new civil case filed in Nueces County is necessary to provide funding for county facility construction, renovation, and improvement projects to be set out in its capital improvement program. Now therefore be it resolved that the Commissioners Court of Nueces County hereby supports legislation providing for an additional civil case fee not to exceed $20 per case in Nueces County to be used for purposes of construction, renovation, improvement of court facilities within Nueces County.
Okay. After all the discussion, it is time to vote. Do I have, actually, we've already have a motion and a second. All those in favor of passing this resolution signify by saying aye. Aye.
There was one.
I thought you did a motion.
There was.
You did. You did a motion and second by Madam Clerk. Yes, we're good? And signify by saying aye once more. Aye. And all opposed?
No.
Same sign, thank you. And so that's 4-1, Madam Clerk. Okay, now we're going to proceed to the next one. I know we've had some tangential discussion.
Judge, go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, sorry.
Was it
I didn't mean to
Tyner or
interrupt you.
Brett?
Go ahead.
Okay. This is in support of legislation authorizing an optional motor vehicle registration fee. Tyner, you want to explain the different the different fees? There's one that exists already under subsection 401, and then this is the subsection 402. I think it's a good education for everybody.
That is correct, and I researched and I found in 2003, the Nueces County Commissioners Court approved a $10 motor vehicle registration fee. It was, my recollection, it was unanimously passed. It was a $10 fee, and that fee solely went into the Road and Bridge Fund of Nueces County. We've been collecting that since 2003. Strangely, the authority to adopt such a resolution was found in 502.172 of the Transportation Code, and I talked to Ledge Council this morning, and they can't find that law anymore. And I'll probably reach out to the county attorney so we can figure out where that authority got moved to. But I think it's a 502.401 $10 fee. Now, what we're proposing with this is an additional $10 fee, which would go into 502.402, which does not go into the Road and Bridge Fund. It goes into the general fund, but only for transportation projects. So that's the distinction. What that does, it gives the Nueces County, the Commissioners Court, a little bit more ability to dictate transportation projects without the restrictions that you may find in the constitutionality of the Road and Bridge Fund. Still for transportation projects, but this is similar to what was done in some valley, Rio Grande Valley jurisdictions. And in fact, I believe there was a bill last session or the session before that was restricted to Hidalgo and Cameron County. I've seen this bill. I don't know what it looks like yet. I've seen this bill drafted for coastal counties that border the Gulf of Mexico. I've seen it for counties may implement a fee if they're on the United Mexican States border. That's actually what the bill says. Mm-hmm. I read that this morning. It's also possible that this may come out of Ledge Council with a coastal county with a certain population.
Right, a bracket.
A bracket. It may come out like that. We'll just have to see what the senator wants to do and what the senator thinks is the best way to get this out of Ledge Council and filed with the highest possibility of passing. And so, again, we don't know exactly what that looks like, but this is going to be a 502.402 bill.
That's my understanding as well, and just a little bit of supplementation to that very, very good summary. Thank you, Tyner, is that indeed Senator Hinojosa has not only carried this legislation, but it originates very much from his office. So it's nice when you go to your senator, your legislative delegation, and you ask for assistance on how you can revenue build in facing revenue caps, and they actually give you something that has proven to be very successful, and where other jurisdictions similarly situated to us, it is very well known that South Texas has been historically underrepresented in transportation funding, and we are behind the eight ball in that regard. We are trying to catch up, but we are certainly not as well proportioned as other regions of Texas. And so the senator, realizing that several sessions ago, began these efforts in Willacy and Cameron and Hidalgo counties. To put things in perspective, commissioners, we have done some investigation for you, and we found that there are 288,000 approximate vehicles that are registered in Nueces County. Therefore, an additional $10 would yield $2.88 million in potential revenue building. What this means for a CO is a potential of $30 million. Now, when faced with over $10 million of ADA projects that need to be funded, when faced with, as I said, chillers, elevators, and the like, with all of us really understanding that infrastructure is the road to economic prosperity, I bet I don't have to ask too hard what road projects you have in your precincts that need attention. Other than you, Commissioner Chesney, because you've done some great new road projects, but I bet there's still transportation projects that you're looking at. And so this particular tool, again, this permissive tool that we would vet not only thoroughly from a fiscal point of view, but from a public's point of view, gives us an opportunity a year from now to look up and say, this is something that can alleviate some pain and some bleeding that we have. And that's what really a capital improvement plan is all about. It's about looking out into the future, understanding your capital needs, but you've got to be able to identify how you're going to revenue build so that you can meet a debt service if you decide to CO, or not, if you think that your revenue can supplant your needs. Either way, this county can no longer ignore the deferred maintenance on our 108 buildings. It is killing us to defer as cost of construction and products continue to increase. I'm specifically concerned about our ADA scenario where we are already post our time per the Department of Justice, and these matters can no longer afford to not be addressed. It is not with excitement that I say I want to bring legislation that gives us these tools, but it is with the fiscal mindedness of the leadership that's required in order to give us options. So, having said that, it's very much in line with what we just talked about, and I look forward to a robust discussion, but first, in the rules, I would like to get a motion. And a second. And having heard a motion, a second, I'd invite all commissioners, as it is different, right? It's a very unique different because it is a lot more money involved, potentially.
Correct.
A discussion, commissioners.
Same discussion as before. Like I say, I bled over on the two, and that's my bad, but I think I made the point. I'm not sure I think this is a good idea, but I'm not sure that I think it's not. And so I think having the tool in the belt is worth looking at. Again, a vote today, for me, does not indicate a vote of support for it later.
Fair enough. Commissioners?
Well, I'll kind of say the same thing. I'll just say this. When I first saw this, I thought, I'll pay $10. I don't have a problem doing that. But Nueces is not a rich county. So $10 for some people out there would be a lot of money. You may laugh and say, no, it's not. But look, you may have an elderly woman. She has a car. She lives on a fixed income. $10 is a lot of money for her. So I do have a problem with it, and I know that it's just going to go there and it may not pass. But my problem is this. Usually when you give the government, we get a tool, government gets a tool, you usually use it. So if this passes, I fully expect that this, I may be wrong, but the court would probably use it. And that's what scares me. So I'm not going to support this one either.
Commissioner Modis?
Yeah, I mean, same thing as before. I mean, I don't think any of us are running to look at taxing anyone additionally or to increasing any fees. This one is a little bit more, it hits more families directly, whereas the court usage doesn't. That one's a much more limited pool, but this one, a lot of people have, their own transportation, so this will hit everyone and touch many people. But to be able to ask for legislation now when we are running on a time frame that we feel that this is a tool that we need to have discussion. How much in the future do we know are we going to need creative ways to look at and being able to manage our budgets? And once again, we run a very conservative budget. I challenge anyone to come and look at our budget, and I ask them, encourage them to join us as we start off in the next couple of months to look at our budget and to truly help us. Other than just saying, let's cut a position, because anyone can do that. But I'm saying to look at what the value that we place in each of these positions that we need in all the buildings that we have, how do you balance that budget? And so if we were able to find a way to purposefully dedicate, not just put it in a general fund, but to purposely say, this is what we want to include, which are infrastructure projects, including roads, including drainage, which is, if you haven't paid attention, is a huge issue in our county. All of us were in attendance, or our offices were in attendance last week with Nueces County Drainage District number 2. Drainage is a big issue. So to be able to say, we may have to look at ways to fund additional ways to mitigate our flooding or our drainage issues, this is a way to do it. I agree, not saying today that we are voting for anything. We're just saying, let us have the opportunity through the process in Austin to see if it will pass. And if or when it does, then we can come back at a later date and we will have a very public, open discussion about the pros and cons of doing this. But let us get to that point. Don't have us cut it off now so that we cannot get to the future without looking at having some sources. Because I'm with you, there are people limited, and we got to be mindful of that anytime we do anything. We have to. And I think this court has done a very good job in doing that over the years, and we will do that again this year. But we must look at ways to maintain the responsibilities that we are giving over and over again by Austin when they blindly say, okay, Nueces County, you take care of it. I think we need to be able to have more resources to at least explore and discuss. It's not committing to anything, so let us at least have those opportunities.
And I think it's an up to an amount, right? I mean, we don't have to.
That's correct.
That's correct, and I'd like to make the distinction. I've been working with Belinda on this. This is configured to go to $20, but the way I understand the law, or at least the statute that we're referring to, if the court does go to 20, that forces it into referendum. So what you would want to do is set it at $10 to not have to.
That's correct.
Or 5 or 3.
Or 5,
whatever
3,
we
whatever
deem
you
necessary.
want to do. That's correct.
Steiner,
No,
you said, one quick question, I'm sorry. This can't go for buildings or infrastructure, so,
This is transportation.
yes, so give me an example exactly. Is this just roads?
Road-
What does it cover? You say transportation projects.
I would say road, if I read the resolution, it kind of describes it a little bit, but it would be transportation, any kind of transportation project. It could be roads. I said associated drainage, because when you build a road, you've got to drain the road. And that's part of transportation.
bridges.
So,
Well, and let me, I will say this, I mean, if we can use it for drainage, then that's sure as heck going to compel me to give some consideration to this, and that's why I don't want to cut it off right now, because if you're telling me, you've actually made this more enticing to me, if you're telling me this could be a source potentially to help with with our drainage issues, without having to go to a countywide drainage district, which is a taxing entity, that makes me feel even better about at least moving forward with this and looking at it, because we sure have to find some tools for drainage, because I don't know what those are either. I mean, and we all know there's a drainage problem, but I don't know what it is, and I don't want to pass a taxing entity for a countywide drainage district. I certainly don't have any desire to do that. But if on a user basis we can potentially do it, and that would be something this court would look at, then I'm interested in at least moving it forward. And again, no commitment to anything but moving it forward. And please get with Kevin, again.
yes.
I agree with that, but nobody in this room wants to pay $10 more, or $15 more, or $5 more. But the counties are run, that's why we have fees and fines for everything there is. Because without those fines and fees, you can't run the county. And nobody wants to charge $10. We don't go up because we just want to go up. I mean, either we run this county or we don't run the county. And it'd be like the old courthouse there. It'd be run down by the time we know it. This courthouse will be just like that old courthouse over there, because we don't have the money to fix it. And this courthouse belongs to you all. It belongs to everybody. It belongs to all the taxpayers. And it's our responsibility to make sure that you get the best services you can. So this is why, I guess, at one point, to run the county, there was fines and fees for a purpose. And those purposes were to run the county. The city has its own fines and fees. And it seems like it's always the county that we think about the most, besides raising fees or raising this. But in the long run, but we don't sit here and just start thinking, well, $10 is okay, everybody can pay it. But if we don't do that, we can't give you the services that you deserve. The services that we should be giving you, and provide the needs. So I think that in the long run, but I just want to make sure, Tanya, that, that, and I've got that question too, that, make sure these funds are earmarked for those things that say we're gonna do them and not deviate from those things. Because, and then we'd probably be in trouble. But, when you said roads and drainage and bridges, to me, that's all part of transportation. Infrastructure for buildings is not part of that, so we can't even, wouldn't even want to go there with that. So, but I just want to let everybody know that, believe us, we're trying to do the best we can with our money. And I say our money because I'm a taxpayer too. And if you have to pay $10, I would have to pay $10. So, and I don't have the $10 either, and I feel the same way you do. So, but this is why, but we can't, the counties can't run the counties if we don't get revenues from somewhere. So, the only thing I gotta say, so I just gotta ensure we do the right thing here, Judge, and, think
you.
about those things.
Those are all very good comments. Are there any other additional comments at this time?
You want me to read this one, Judge?
Yes.
I'll go ahead. Whereas the Nueces County Commissioners Court is in the process of creating a capital improvement program for the long-term needs of the county with regard to important infrastructure projects, including roads and associated drainage. Whereas Nueces County ad valorem taxes have consistently been maintained at a low rate over past budget years and historically have been insufficient to fund these important infrastructure projects. Whereas in order to generate revenue for such a capital improvement program, funding sources such as an optional motor vehicle registration fee must be legislatively established. Whereas an optional motor vehicle registration fee not to exceed $20 for each registered vehicle in Nueces County is necessary to provide funding for Nueces County transportation projects to be set out in its capital improvement program. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Commissioners Court of Nueces County hereby supports legislation providing for an optional motor vehicle registration fee not to exceed $20 per vehicle in Nueces County to be used for funding transportation projects within Nueces County.
Thank you, Tyner. We have a motion, a second from earlier, and at this time, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign? No. 4-1. Okay. At this time, it is time for the public comment portion. If somebody would be so kind as to bring me thank you, Tyner. I will call, do we have anybody? Oh, we do.
Lisa Bachholt is on item A1, and I think the rest of them are courthouse.
Okay, thank you. So I'll take it.
So Lisa Bachholt is
Maybe,
4A1, and then
okay,
the rest of them are on the courthouse item.
but we'll handle A1 at the time, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. The court recognizes Anita Eisenhower at this time for public comment.
May we defer till the courthouse situation?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. All of you, okay, so everybody here is, okay, perfect. I'll just leave it right here. Moving right along, and I should ask, is there anybody that didn't have a chance to sign up at this time for public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll move along to the consent agenda. We have one item, Commissioners. It's approving the application procedure for the South Texas Water Authority. If you've had an opportunity to review, at this time, I'd have a motion to pass our consent agenda.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
And all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. That motion for the application procedure carries. At this time, we have regular agenda items. Number one is to discuss and consider making appointments to boards and committees with vacant positions. Tyner?
Yeah, and Judge and Commissioners, I put this item on here because I'm simply looking for direction from the court.
Okay.
I don't know that we ever tried to handle this in the past, but your major boards like the Port of Corpus Christi, Hospital District, those positions stay filled, they expire, people apply, and the court reappoints them. But there's some boards out there that we come across from time to time that do not have a maximum number of people. And We unfortunately, and Margaret's here, Margaret spends so much of her time in my office doing this process. But just so happened to use animal control as an example, animal control does not have a maximum number of members. And over the past couple of weeks, we just received 4 applicants out of the blue, and we don't have, it's not being posted right now.
5, she said.
5, excuse me.
She waved from the back, so I'm just telling you.
And Margaret, if you want to come forward, but I just need
Right.
direction from the court. Do you
Well,
want?
and I'll even go one further, and I didn't really know where we were going with this, but I too would like to issue a complaint, and that is that we really need some good website. We need to expand our website so that we can share with our citizens what boards and commissions are open and available and have them on monitors downstairs. And there's so many good things we can do, and even the way that the application process, and we noticed this, commissioners, it doesn't even allow you to really put your whole CV in. It's very limited on how you can utilize the actual form itself. It could use some modernization. So that's part of a side note, but I hear you, and it sounds like good governance requires reviewing how we govern from time to time.
Saying you would like to put a limit on some of these board members?
Not necessarily.
No,
I just.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, some of the boards have designated slots. I mean, if you have a roving board, what are we going to end up with, 20 on something? That's unmanageable. So maybe we need to pull all those boards out, because maybe some of those boards and commissions are outdated. Maybe, maybe we need to look at whether we need some of these boards and commissions, whether we
They're
need to put.
duplicitous, maybe?
Yeah, they're duplicitous. Maybe we need to put a limit on it, that it shouldn't be just a roving number, that we need to have 7 or 9, or, to me, the smaller the board, the better. And I'm not trying to exclude people, but it becomes a little.
Do I hear a volunteer?
Nope. He's asking for direction. I'm giving direction, but I know.
I'll tell you what.
But I think the court has to make that decision. I mean, I really
Right.
do. I think we're going to have to, as a court, decide to put it on the agenda and say, okay, let's look at all these boards and commissions and go through them and make recommendation, have a workshop, whatever, because I bet it's been a long time since we've probably reviewed any of that kind of stuff.
That's correct.
We need to look at them individually, I think, and do term limits on them, look at them individually. This is kind of a special situation out there, that we got 5 applications is unreal, and that board is in trouble out there, and we need to look at it, because what we did, there's a particular person on that board that did not make the cut the first time around, because the paperwork wasn't turned in, and we did not reappoint him. And then he goes to the judge, and it comes back here, and why it came back here, I voted no, but they put him on there.
Not this judge.
No, not you, absolutely not, it was not you. But it's a problem, and I do think that on this one today, I think we need to look at that on the people that want on the board and let them be on there, because we've got people on there that have been on there forever, and we need some new ideas.
Miss Margaret, I know you've got some nice comments here.
Well, I just was using that as an example. And the whole part of the agenda item is, whenever somebody applies and we don't have it open, we have to start the whole procedure all over again. We have to open it for applications, we have to set a deadline, wait for people to turn in their applications, and if it's just that one person that's applying, that's a big fat waste of time. Because we're sitting there waiting for the deadline, and then we have to do another agenda item to get them appointed, and with boards like animal control, which is, I got all these applications in, and it's not even open. And what we're kind of trying to do is, instead of, when I get a group of applications, starting the whole procedure all over again, just making an agenda item to see if y'all would appoint the people, instead of opening it to the public, because they're sending them anyways.
And for example, today, under the board appointment items, you would have those 4 applicants for animal control. And if you only wanted to appoint 1, you thought the board was enough already, or appoint all 4, however you wanted to do it, just because there's no maximum specified in the law.
I mean, there's got to be a way. I mean, we can't have boards that have 20
No.
people on it. You can't even get a quorum. So, I mean, there's got to be something, and I mean, my thought would be if you checked with other counties, I mean, you guys are kind of the staff experts on this, maybe come back to us with a recommendation.
Well, and yeah, because
Let us
this,
start from there.
this
I don't know,
board
Judge. I mean,
in particular, there's
Yeah.
no term limits at all. There's people who have been on the board for 30 years, 15 years, 19 years.
well, how do we do that term limits? Can we do term limits on our own boards and commissions? I don't want to talk about the hospital district right now. I just want to talk about.
Laura?
Basically, if it's not statutory, certainly it's advisory. This is an advisory board. You can establish that.
Okay.
I think what we're hearing is, and this is just, again, under the headline of governance, right? Governance is something that you just have to look at from time to time. We almost need to assign somebody the task of, creating the chart of all our boards and commissions, creating the Excel spreadsheet, see where we have term limits. Some of our boards have statutory term limits, and then figure out, how we can best address the best number, right? You create a bylaw, is the way it works. You create bylaws for these boards, and the bylaws govern many things, including terms of service and the number of members.
That's kind of another problem too, is some of the bylaws, they're so old and they're so vague that you can take some things one way and some things the other.
Right.
Depending on who you're talking to.
Right. Well, and let me take a look at how we styled it. We said, discuss and consider procedure. I would, and this is why we've kind of asked for interns, from a political science and government perspective for a university student. This is a brilliant project, and it's something that I'm not sure that.
Veterinarians?
Well, I just could say that maybe a motion to create a governance committee in which I could lead out of my office. I'm volunteering Maggie. She hasn't seen me yet, but Maggie, I'm volunteering. That this is something that we'll create a project to bring back to you very quickly of all the boards and commissions so you can see where we are. I just don't have any idea how many members each of these boards have.
And I think that's a great idea, but I will ask this. For this particular one, since we had no project, nothing that was a process on how many whatever, is there any way we can put this animal control on the agenda and get these ladies appointed? Because there's not a whole bunch of people jumping out of the woodwork wanting to be on that.
I think, Lauda, can we do that? Does it have to be next meeting, or can it be done this meeting?
Next meeting.
Next meeting, Commissioner?
Thank you.
I think we also have public comment at this time on A1. If that's all right with you, Commissioners. Please come forward. Forgive me. Let me grab my chart.
This is on the procedure, right? Okay.
This is A1. She signed up for A1, and that is, is it Ms. Beckholt? Bachholt? Welcome, Ms. Bachholt. Please, would you like to comment on this agenda item?
I would, please. My name is Lisa Buckholt. My mailing address is 1411 East FM 1717, Kingsville. And first of all, want to thank everybody for allowing me the opportunity to speak. And I also want to state that I am an existing volunteer at Nueces County Animal Control. I've been volunteering there now. It'll soon be almost 5 years. I am also a recent Nueces County Commissioner Court appointee to this particular Animal Control Advisory Committee that we are discussing right now. And I'd like to just share some of my personal observations and concerns with you all with regard to the committee's current structure and functionality. The committee was formed in 1989, and it is mandated under the Texas Health and Safety Code, Chapter 823.005. Basically, this is an oversight advisory committee in nature whose purpose is specifically to ensure animal control's compliance with the requirements of the Health and Safety Code, Section 823.003, with regard to such issues as housing of the animals at the shelter, sanitation and care of the animals at the shelter, disposition of the animals at the shelter, officer training, and overall operations. Now, as a new member, and a interested, passionate member, I have been very disappointed, to be frank, with the haphazard nature in which this particular committee operates, and that would be including, but not limited to, the things we're talking about right now. Very old, outdated, and vague bylaws. Those bylaws give no term limits on the amount of terms a member can serve, nor any amount of membership, as you were discussing. And also just stagnated membership. As Commissioner Vaughn stated, I think that when people volunteer, that's lovely, but if you're not garnering new volunteers and having some fresh ideas, and you have stagnated membership, that can somewhat be a little bit of a distraction to moving things forward. And then also, in general, a lack of leadership on this board. There's just been a long-term failure of this committee to do what I feel the committee's purpose is, and that is to provide recommendations and advice to the supervisor of this department with degree of thought and research and a certain amount of regularity to it. So what I would hope, and as you can see, I take my volunteer work and also my appointment to the board and the committee, I take it very seriously because I'm interested in this. This is an area that I'm very interested and concerned with. And I hope that in the coming year that this Commissioners Court also will take a much more interested role in the oversight of this committee. And I think that that will be of tremendous benefit to Supervisor Ramirez as well as to the county as a whole. Right now, we do have some interested people that have also volunteered, and they're looking to join the committee as well. So that's all, and I appreciate the opportunity to address you.
Thank you. We appreciate your service to our county.
She ought to be the chairman of the advisory board.
Judge, may I
Yes,
say
ma'am.
this?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to thank Lisa because she really is an asset to animal control out there. She is almost single-handedly, with the help of a few, gotten these dogs adopted instead of having to kill them. So these are the kind of people we need on that committee.
Yep.
Thank you.
I think this has really enlightened all of us that, and it's something that I really preached a lot, and that is that good governance really does require effort. And therefore, I believe that this agenda item has opened our eyes, and I'd like to, by next Commissioners Court meeting, at least present to you a chart that would show and indicate where we are, and maybe even present to you a comprehensive, Margaret, set of bylaws that could be utilized, maybe each, obviously we have to separate the purposes, right? But given that the purposes are unique, all the other requirements maybe could have some consistency. And we will work towards that so that we will have appointments. And here's another thing. I think if you want to serve on a board, I think you should come and either send a letter or contact us or call us, or so that we can get to know you, because it makes a big difference so that we know who is working so diligently in our behalf. It gives me a chance to say thank you. So these are things we can work on, Margaret. I really had no idea of the burden, but I can certainly appreciate.
Well, I do know, y'all vote whenever we make appointments and stuff. Sometimes I don't know if everybody knows who they're voting for, because nobody ever comes up here, and maybe it should be, if you're going to get appointed to a board, you should come up here and meet everybody from Commissioners Court who's voting for you.
I think it's certainly a good recommendation and a good practice to be in the audience,
But not,
But not
not
mandatory.
realistic. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
with all due respect, they're not all going to come.
Right.
They can't, they work, that we meet during the
It's a good
days.
recommendation.
Right, yeah.
It's a good
I get it, but
So,
that's,
so no action at this time, Tyner. No action, commissioners, is required, but I think you've broadened our horizons, and I think we can move forward if Tyner will assist us. And
but yeah, I mean, if Margaret's got some ideas on how to do this, and come back with us with a recommendation on the term limits, on the numbers, that'd be great. On maybe even if you think there's a board that's completely inactive, I mean, that would be great, because we certainly appreciate the folks that are doing the hard work out there, and we want to acknowledge that, but we also we just haven't looked at this in a long time. So whenever you're ready, maybe we can do a workshop, and bring it all back and start talking about it. I don't know. I mean, but it's a good discussion. We need to have it.
agreed. Okay. Anything further, commissioners, on this item? All right, let me go back to my, the last item on our regular agenda is Tyner and Lauda, if you would help us here on this item, discuss and hiring Steve Aragon and his firm, Steve Aragon PC, to provide legal services related to proposed healthcare-related legislation to include county's administrative role and obligations and related matters, including the authorization of execution of engagement letter.
I'm not sure if you still want to go into closed session
Yeah, I mean, anything,
for
yeah.
voting on this?
Well,
I
that's
do on
probably-
anything that's got a closed session. I would like to go into anything that's got closed session before we,
That sounds fine.
I mean, if that's okay. I mean,
Absolutely.
Where's the closed session in there?
we can do like 1 and 2 on the purchasing, I guess, and then go into closed session.
Let's do that.
I got some legal questions for sure.
Okay. On purchase, do I need to do anything? Is that fine?
That's fine.
Okay. Thank you, Lauda.
Finish your purchasing.
On purchasing, the number one has to do with the solid waste collection disposal services for coastal parks. You recall that we tabled, and Michael's here to talk to us about this contract.
Okay, this is the contract to furnish the Nueces County coastal parks with solid waste containers and regularly scheduled disposal of accumulated solid waste services located at county coastal park properties. The initial term is for 24-month period with option to renew in 12-month increments not to exceed 3 additional years past the initial term. As you recall, 2 bids were received. We recommend award to the low bidder, Absolute Waste Services, who is the current provider. The current contract is set to expire on March 18th. And that's
So-
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Question. Judge Canales brought up a great point in the last meeting, and that's the reason we delayed this. And obviously, unfortunately, we know we can't get everything done in as quick a period of time as we would like to. Scott had mentioned, Cross had mentioned that in an email, even if we end up working out a deal to swap sections of the beach, there are good provisions that allow us to amend and modify the service of the contract so it would have no bearing on any future agreements. Tell me what that means to you, because I'm okay with this as long as it doesn't hamper anything that we want to do with the city if we can ever get there.
what,
Welcome, Scott, welcome, Director of Coastal Parks.
Didn't mean to throw you under the bus. That's true. We have those provisions in there we can add to, take away, as long as, whether it's relocating a service somewhere else, whether it's taking away or adding to a service, there are provisions in that contract that purchasing and legal helped me work with when we renewed this the last time, so we would have that flexibility. We had to go through the same thing in Port Aransas. We did the interlocal up there. We're able to take away those services and either relocate that effort or do away with some of that effort. So it's already in the contractual agreement if we execute it.
Pretty much what he's saying is that you would have that 30-day out.
Yeah.
You would have to get out of the contract.
But there is, if in fact, and it's not a high, I mean, I don't know how high likely it is. It'd be nice to think we're going to get this done. We've been talking about it for 4 years. So if the skies parted and we were actually able to get this done, what you're telling me is there's an out in the contract for 30 days that says, okay, we're completely flipping and we're not going to do it anymore, and the city is, and we're not going to do it. That's what you're saying?
yes, that
Okay.
language is in the agreement.
Then Judge, I'm fine moving forward on this with that understanding, and they've done a good job, so I would move that we accept the low bid on this and move forward.
Understood. And a second, I need a second.
Second.
I've got a second. And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Do you need public comments or public
Oh,
comments?
I'm sorry, I don't think there was public
Okay, I
comment.
just want to make sure. Okay.
Is there?
All right, making sure.
Okay, sorry about that.
My bad.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And all those opposed, same sign. Okay, we have gone through number one. Number two is the discussion of some paving improvements on Saratoga to County Road 26, Michael.
35.
Oh, it says 20,
Yep,
I'm sorry,
yes,
35 to
35
26.
from
I beg your pardon.
Saratoga Boulevard to County Road 26.
Correct.
On this item, we received 8 bids, and last time, as we discussed, the bids were reviewed by LJA Engineering, and they recommended award to Garrett Construction for all the work in the base bid and the additive bid, number 1. What we're recommending, what my understanding is that the Commissioner's interested in awarding on the base bid only to Garrett Construction.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, base bid only, removing the additive so we can look at it again, but all we're going to deal with is the base bid.
It's your COs?
Yeah.
That's a funding source, okay.
Right, you might want to, the funding sources from precinct.
Precinct.
Go ahead, make
Are there any other questions? If not, I'll looking for a motion. And I need a second.
second.
And all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. The next one is discuss the award of the RFP number 3090-18, sale of the old historic courthouse.
You also had
Exactly.
I don't know if you want to go in executive session.
Well, I know we do. The question is just a little guidance from you all. I have an entire sheet here of public comment. Is it possible to take public comment now? Or do you prefer, because we have, as you know, multiple items in executive session.
But we can-
I
know.
would say we
You-
go in executive session.
You want to wait first? Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, just for your purposes, I know you've been very patient, those of you who've signed up. The process now is that there are several exceptions to the,
Judge, could I,
yes,
if you wanted to, we could go and do just the one executive session and come back and let the public comment be had.
Lauda?
You can do that.
Yeah.
And they
And
will
I'm
then
just
go-
trying to be courteous,
Right,
that's all.
right. And
I'm
then
just
go-
trying to be
yeah.
courteous.
We don't want to make people wait any longer, and that would be, we could go do that
Okay,
one.
I'm,
Go back to the other one.
Yeah, and then go back into for the
Right.
other ones afterwards.
so as I say, if you speak our language, we're going to go back and come back, okay? But let me read the magic language here. Public notice is given that the Commissioners Court may elect to go into executive session at any time during the meeting to discuss matters listed on the agenda when authorized and by the provisions of the Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. In the event the Commissioners Court elects to go into executive session regarding agenda item, the section or sections of the Open Meetings Act authorizing this executive session will be publicly announced by the presiding officer. I do so announce. In accordance with the authority of the Government Code, Vernon's Texas Code, Sections 551, 071, 072, 073, 074, 745, 76, 086, and 087, the Commissioners Court now goes into holding an executive session to consult with our attorney, including matters relating to litigation, deliberate regarding real property, prospective gifts, personnel matters, including termination, county advisory boards, security devices, and our economic development negotiations, and other matters that may be discussed or deemed proper in executive session. Upon completion of executive session, the Commissioners Court may, in open session, take such action as appropriate and on items discussed in our executive session. So we shall return. I'm going to recess here, 3:22, and we shall go into executive session, and we will be back. List. And even though we're waiting, Commissioner Gonzalez, I can still go ahead and call us back into order at 4:18 PM out of executive session, now into regular session. And all members are present. Okay, Commissioners, when we last left off, we had one item going into the regular agenda, and that is item number 2, discuss and consider hiring Steve Aragon and his firm, Steve Aragon PC, to provide legal services on healthcare-related legislation, to include county's administrative role, and to authorize the execution of the engagement letter. And I just want to state that this particular, you'll recall last Commissioners' meeting, we had a special presentation from Director of the Hospital District, Johnny Hipp, on LPPF, that stands for Local Provider Participation Fund. This is the mechanism that is being considered in many counties across our state to help draw down supplemental funds for Medicaid from CMS in lieu of the current 1115 Medicaid waiver program, which does have an expiration date. This, of course, is all a result of Texas being one of only 14 states not having expanded Medicaid. Therefore, our hospital providers and our hospital district that have a membership agreement with one another to help provide indigent care need these dollars. They're absolutely crucial and vital to our community to be able to fill this gap of Medicaid supplemental funding. It's a lot of stuff going on, and in that vein, we need some professional services, and this, Commissioners, is what this item is all about. Not that I want to put him on the spot, but he happens to be here, and if any commissioners have any questions, as soon as we make a motion in a second, I would invite him to come forward and just be able to answer any of them. But his CV is quite impressive, and most importantly to me, and I hope to all of you, is that he's the former general counsel for Health and Human Services Commission, and he is intimately, probably ad nauseum, understanding as an expert in the field of Medicaid funding, and particularly the 1115 Medicaid waivers, and so many more issues that deal with Health and Human Services. But
Judge, I'd like to move on it, but I'll have to make sure that we're understanding that the county is not, at no cost to the county, right?
that's correct. That's correct, Commissioners. And would that be a motion, Commissioner?
Also move.
And can I get a second?
Second.
Yes? Okay. And is there any discussion or any, I believe if his CV has not been provided, we can make that available to you. I think it was provided. I don't know. Commissioners, any discussion on this very important LPPF expert that we're going to hire for legal services to help draft the bill along with the Senator Hinojosa's office, who will be carrying this legislation? Okay. You're off the hook, Steve.
Take a vote.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Okay. So we're moving along now to the next one that we skipped, and that would be number 3 on purchasing. We'd invite procurement, Michael, to come and share with us the results of the RFP number 3090-18.
Thank you, Judge. I'm going to go ahead and pass out the scoring sheets.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Just like to say a few words here. The evaluation committee met to review the one proposal that we did receive. That proposal was from the Ed Rochelle Foundation and was for the demolition of the old courthouse. The minimum purchase price for the property requested in the RFP was $1,075,000. That minimum amount is the fair market value of the land as determined by appraisal obtained by the county, without regard to the cost of demolition to the building. As you are aware, a matching grant provided by the Texas Historical Commission for renovation of the exterior of the south wing of the building in the amount of $1.9 million would have to be addressed if the building is to be demolished. The resulting score for this proposal is contained on the scoring sheet that is before you. There were 2 criteria that were not part of the proposal, and therefore we noted them as NA, or not applicable. And the recommendation of the evaluation committee is to reject all bids.
Thank you. Commissioners, I'm going to call for public comment at this time. There are many of you here, and I'm going to just take it in order. And I always suggest that it's nice to speak if many of you are from the same organization and you do have a designated spokesperson, but you still want to show your support. I've seen this format. It's really great. You designate a spokesperson, they come up forward, but then you stand and just identify yourself as being collectively one voice or one message. And if that, we could start with that, and you could always add on. Miss Anita Eisenhower is our first person.
Can I defer to
Absolutely.
another person?
Absolutely.
If you would go, please.
And just identify for the court when you,
I'm
And-
Anita Eisenhower, Chairman, Nueces County Historical Commission, and I'm deferring to one of our Historical Commission members. This is Barbara Welder. Let me give you a little background on Barbara. She has been chairman of the B County Historical Commission, and she saw the oversight of the restoration of that courthouse, which has proven to that community to have a lot of economic results that were very positive. So I'd like for you to hear from her, please, first.
thank you. And just for the record, I'm going to read the names and ask that, I certainly don't want to leave anybody out, but if you would signify by at least saying aye, or that you agree that Ms. Welder will speak for you, then I'll know not to call on you, or if you would like to make comment, I'd like to make that note at this time. Judy Presley, all right, okay, I'm just going to mark it down so I'll know, okay? And then Ms. Penny Pollock? I'd like to comment. All right, Greer Mahaffey? Jackie Parabo? Kathy, excuse me, I'm sorry, I can't read. Oh, yes, of course, Kathy. Okay, are you and I? I want to defer my time somewhere. Defer, okay, thank you. John, no, it's wrong. Mr. Rowe? R-O-W-E? I can't read it clearly. Rowe, yes, it's Rowe. Okay, and Troy Nestor? Aye, okay. And then Norma Delaney? Aye. Had to leave, okay. And Francis? I'd like to make a comment. Okay, I've noted them, Commissioners, but we do have a lot of consolidations, and I thank you for that. I'm sorry, I yield to you, Ms. Welder.
Thank you, Judge. And
Yes.
Commissioners, I'm happy to be here. I guess I represent the no for not tearing down this beautiful building. But on the other hand, I have been on the side of, yes, we ought to tear it down. And it was for many other reasons, but it's not with this courthouse. I am the, I guess, veteran of two restored courthouses, the one in B County in 2006, which finalized then, and the one in Karnes County, which has just been finalized in 2018. I am from those two counties. And the last one, the Karnes County one, I want to talk about just very briefly, because I don't want to stand and say, oh, this was great, we did such a great job, and then you're thinking about tearing it down, which I hope you're not. Okay, that courthouse had many more problems than you can imagine, Karnes County Courthouse. It was 1895, and it had water, it had roof, it had everything wrong with it. It was going to cost a fortune. And this was a town of 2,000. Now, the one thing that would be germane to Nueces County is that it had a wing that was pulling the rest of the building down. And with that, there was a big decision on whether we should tear it down, the wing, at all. And of course, there were those that said it would be too much, so on and so forth. Money is always a concern. Now, the result was it was torn off, and it was restored without that wing that endangered the whole building. And by the way, I have to brag a little bit, at least just one time. It did receive the 2018 Preservation Texas Award this year for the best restored courthouse. So that's a great thing that happened. So, all right, so I'm going to go into another story real quick, and that's B County. B County had many problems. I was just telling another architect in the room, Lady Justice was hanging by one board. We were all waiting for the lady to drop. Unfortunately, she did not, and that was finished in 2006. All I have to say to you is think this through carefully before you tear anything down. And I know about this easement. I have spoken many times to members of here and there, and as well as the Texas Historical Commission about that. And I've asked how many other courthouses or how many other properties have been excused with an easement, and the answer was no courthouse has ever been granted that particular thing. Now, I could be wrong. I'm just suggesting that it's a conversation that I had. One thing I'm going to do is just for our benefit, because I'm really on your side, I want to go through just a quick checklist on this to make sure we're all sort of on the same page. Isn't this a little early to make this decision? Simply because I understand that previous judge, and the commissioners, some of you included, had made the decision to not accept the previous offer. In architectural language, time is really golden. And it was only last year, I believe September, am I right? And now it's February. Isn't that a shorter time for an architect or a builder, a construction developer, and so forth to develop a full plan? Number two, are there other entities interested? Now, I want to look really long and hard at that one because I have heard, and this is not just rumor, that there are other entities that are interested. I could be wrong on that one also. But that would be one that we would all need to know about. Number three, have you examined all structural reports? As I understand, there are reports out there floating around that have been done before, even in the Swin-McLean era, that would lend a lot of views on this, on structural reports particularly. Have you considered the opinions from all voters? And that's why we're here today, to tell you, please consider and postpone this. Are you aware of the other benefits? Now I want to stop right here just a second and go back to B County and Karnes County. I'm sorry, those are my frame of reference. Poor little B County. It was such a real effort to get that courthouse done. We're all focused on the courthouse. Shall we save it? Little did we realize the other things that happened at Beeville during this time. After the courthouse was done, would you believe, we had $9 million of investment immediately. We had a new library that a foundation from Houston built for $6.6 million. We had Main Street, which, as you know, is no small thing. There's a little bit of effort in that one. And we developed TIF grants. We had developed all of Main Street, is for that fact, which wasn't but 3 blocks long, but 3 blocks of historical buildings are worth a lot. Now, with that, just those little tidbits right there, Nueces County, Corpus Christi, and all these other counties have very strong historical units. I mean, I haven't lived here forever. I live here now 5 years, and I have seen the impact of all of our history people, not just history, but architecture, who are really interested in this particular building. It's pretty overwhelming, really. Are you aware of these other benefits, aside from just restoring the building? Have you read one other document, and I'm just going to give it to you real quickly, and it's one I used as my sort of Bible in this realm of preservation. It is called Economic Impact on Historic Preservation, Economic Impact on Historic Preservation. And it was written by many people, but this particular editor was John Now, who's now the chairman of the Texas Historical Commission. It wasn't until then that I discovered how really valuable one historic building can be. You get federal tax credits. You get state tax credits. Let's dream a minute and think about possibly cutting this off, this opportunity to sell it off until you figure that out. And I don't mean anything, condescending about this. I wouldn't want to be in your place, not at all. There are all kinds of ways that these buildings could be used. Possibly a university. I'm going to put on my Mary Poppins hat a minute. Maybe the Exploratorium. Maybe a new museum. There are just so many maybes. Don't stop dreaming. Don't stop thinking. Don't tear that building down until you really, really, really come to no other answer. And then we'll be back.
Thank you, Ms. Welder. Judy Presley, if you wouldn't mind coming forward, and then the next one we'll have is Miss Pollock, and then Mr. Rao, and we'll end up with Francis. I think in the interest of time, and you all are doing a great job, if you would just be mindful, maybe we want to hear from everybody, and I'm going to not put a buzzer on you, but if you would just be mindful of everybody else's time that I know that you want to speak, I think that would really help everybody, the court. Thank you. Thank you, Judy. Appreciate you.
I am Judy Presley. I've lived here in Compass about 20 years. I'm from George West, Texas, just up the road, and we have the most marvelous old courthouse that Mr. George West built for the community, for the county. And I've always had so much pride in it. First, I want to talk to you, and I'm going from the beauty point. I was educated in architecture. I am not an architect, but I've had architectural history classes, and I am an interior architect. I taught school here also. I have 2 degrees. I taught school here in Compass several years ago, and the second year I taught, we had a field trip to the harbor. Do you realize we had children that had never been to the harbor but lived in Corpus? And I think you can already see where I'm coming from. We must fulfill the needs of our citizens, but not only, you cannot just be fed physically and taken care of that way. There's got to be beauty in your life. And I remember when I was in about the 4th grade there in Little George West, I lived on a ranch outside near Oakville, another smaller town. But that day in school, we opened our geography books. I saw a picture. I was a picture person. I wasn't a reading person. I was visual. I saw the picture of the pyramids in Egypt. I thought, oh my golly, Beeville to the right was the farthest I had ever been in my life at that time. San Antonio occasionally. And I thought, I'm going to have to go to college. I want to be an archaeologist. I've got to really get my life together so I can go to college and be an archaeologist. I did not get to do that. But I want to tell you, and I don't know if I'm allowed, I'm going to do it anyway. Do you realize that this courthouse, here's a picture of our courthouse, that you're considering tearing down? Here it is, right here. Tell me, and if there's another, do we, in my architectural studies, this is a typical Greek revival building. And do you know where one, and they maybe got their inspiration from it, in Athens, Greece, on the Acropolis. It's the hill that kind of flattens out and lots of debris on it. And the Erechtheum is built there. It's a smaller building than the Pantheon. And do you know what is on the front of the Erechtheum? It has the Ionic, and these are female. This column and this capital, these are the capitals, here are the columns. These are female. There were different classifications. Then, that's female too. That's the Ionic. Usually you just see the Doric, the big column, and just a little bit of something like this, but these are very unusual. On this side, it's about like that on the Erechtheum, on top of the Acropolis, is the Caratids. Do you know what the Caratids are? Oh, come on.
I do.
Yes.
I do.
Okay, what are they?
The Caratids are the female, the muses, all of the beautiful females that you see in the, next to the Parthenon, as you said, on the Erechtheum.
You see them on this side when you're going to Portland, Texas. When you're going to Portland, you see the Caratids, and I'm not real sure how many there are. And my heart bleeds when I see these figures. The same architecture that is on the Acropolis there in Athens, Greece. And I think our people, and I taught school here, and our people here need to know how to dream. We have a lot of children that have never been anywhere or done anything, and I was kind of like that too growing up in a rural agrarian community. But then my parents pushed me to go places and do things, go to college, and we can feed these people, which we have to do. We've got to take care of our people. But then I have seen to it that my grandchildren have gotten out, and they're still fairly young. Practically all of my grandchildren I have taken to Italy, I have taken to Paris. I've taken them to France because I want them to know what else is out there in the world. We're just not talking about the money to take care of this entity. It is the culture that we have. I mean, to have a building like this, we could use it as an educational tool. It could at some point become in fourth grade, every fourth grader in the Nueces County School District or Corpus Christi Independent School District has to go to the courthouse. They must have a tour by someone that can tell them about the columns, the capitals, and where you can find that. And Greece is where we got our democracy, the first democracy. And I mean, it goes into history. And I just want our people here to be able to dream. And we're talking about, we as adults, there are places still in Europe I want to go. I'd love to go to Egypt, see the pyramids, but probably I won't get to do that. So when you think about, I'm going to cry. When you start thinking about, I mean, this isn't an act, tearing down something that is so similar to what is the Greeks built at the Acropolis.
Thank you, Ms. Presley. Hello.
Hi,
Penny.
I'm Penny Pelak.
Yes, Penny.
I was here just a couple of weeks ago with my livestock show, Queens, and that is part of what I'm going to address today. I am an educator, a former principal, and I just do not believe in changing the rules midstream. Had I done that in my classroom or as a principal or the Queens contest after those girls got ready, just think of all of the turmoil that we would be going through. So I am opposed to asking the THC to remove the covenants before 2027. I'm also here as a board member of the Texas Tropical Trail Region, which is one of the 10 trails in the state of Texas, which is part of the Texas Historical Commission. We are a 20-county area from about Refugio over to Cotulla and south. And we are trying to visit all 20 county courthouses. We have done 10 so far. We did Corpus Christi, Nueces County, in December, and Tyner did a wonderful job taking us on that tour. Do you know that the economic impact for just those few hours that we were in Corpus Christi that day was $4,379.27? That economic impact came from the mileage of people traveling here, the meals that we had here, gasoline, shopping. So the beautiful building could be a tourist attraction, could be a museum, library, so many things. You've heard all of that. But I urge you, as a long time, 66 years of living in Nueces County, out in Agua Dulce, western and Nueces County, people sometimes forget about us. I urge you not to demolish the courthouse. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Mr. Rao? Rowe, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Maybe we should do printing next time for the old judge's eyes. So sorry. And I know Penny too, but I couldn't read it. So sorry, Penny.
Did you call me?
I did, sir. John Rowe.
It's a very hard name. My name is Jim Rome, R-O-M-E, just like the city. And I've lived in Corpus Christi for over 50 years now. And I'm a retired architect at the moment, and probably will still, the next moment will still be a retired architect. But I'm also a member of the County Historical Commission, an organization that works very hard to keep the history in people's minds and for the county to gloat over if they want to gloat. But we do a good job in what we do, and we're very professional about it. We're mandated by the Texas Historical Commission to do what we're doing. And the thing that has been said, and I want to say it again, that we don't think that y'all have had sufficient time to deal with the courthouse and hopefully get it restored. We've been, as a commission and as members of the Historical Society, have been dealing with it many, many more years than what you all have in the time that you've been here into Corpus Christi. So we don't want you to hurry along and complete a sale which hasn't had enough time to get other people interested in it, and maybe we'll get a courthouse that is restored eventually. The commission, the Nueces County Historical Commission urges all you commissioners to be pro-historical and I want you to have a development, a way of developing our county heritage. And the county commission has a heritage, and we don't want to forget that, because you all have a very important part to play. But please give us a little more time, give yourselves a little more time to develop something that is meaningful to the county. I'm sorry that this has all been impromptu as far as I'm concerned, and I'm old and I don't speak well. But bear with me and take care of us, will you? Please.
Thank you so much for your comments, and they were just fine. Our last speaker today is Frances Moray.
Hi, I'm Frances Morey, and I've only been here 3 years, but I grew up in Castroville, where we have about 100 historic houses, and I lived in one my entire first 20 years of my life, and I inherited it, and it was quite a struggle trying to figure out what to do with it. But then I moved to Austin to go to college in 1962, and that was around the time that the historic movement started. And the people who owned historic properties in Austin couldn't tear them down fast enough to beat the requirements for historic districting. You have so few historic buildings down here in Corpus that makes that building much more exciting. And I'm proud to say that my husband is taking me to San Antonio to go stay at the Emma for Mother's Day in May, and I'm all excited about it. And I would like my grandchildren to look forward to having a place like that to come stay, maybe the Mary in Corpus Christi. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Commissioners, at this time, it's proper to hear motions, and for the reasons that we've had the opportunity to discuss in executive session, I'd like to move that we table this item as it appears, and also taking into consideration the report that we've heard from procurement. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Judge, is that for a date specific?
That's a very good point. Thank you. You're really good at this Robert's Rule stuff. Date specific, I would need a little help from Tyner. Can I have the date of our next commissioners meeting?
The March 13th meeting?
March 13th. I'd like to table for March 13th, 2019, and I'm assuming that's a 9 a.m. start. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That gets us back on our regular order of business.
Second.
Now I have a motion and a second for a table for a date specific. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Okay. Just a little bit of housekeeping here. You saw that we went into executive session, and we have dealt with Commissioners items B and C, I'm sorry, B, My goodness, Barbara. B and D. However, Commissioners, we still need legal counsel on issues A and C. And so at this time, audience, I know those of you that made public comment to the courthouse, if you wish to be excused, that's completely fine. Yours are always ready to, we're always happy to have you listen to the county business, but believe it or not, and I know for the rest of you in the audience, it has been a long afternoon, but that is the nature of the county's business. At this time, we're going to get out of regular session at 4:51 and go back into executive session. Madam County Attorney, do I need to read? All right. I'm getting really good at this. I'm going to have it memorized like Southwest Airlines does here by the end of the year. Public notice is given that the Commissioners Court may elect to go into executive session anytime during the meeting to discuss matters listed on the agenda when authorized by the provisions of the Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551, the Texas Government Code. In the event the Commissioners Court elects to go into executive session, at this time we do, the section or sections of the Open Meetings Act authorizing executive session will be publicly announced by the presiding officer. At this time, I do so announce. In accordance with the authority of the Government Code, Vernon's Texas Code Sections 071, 551, 071 through 0745, 076, 086, and 087, the Commissioners Court will hold an executive session to consult with our attorney, including matters relating to litigation, deliberating real property, prospective gifts, personnel matters, including termination, county advisory parties, security devices, and economic development negotiations, and any other matters that may be discussed in executive session. Upon completion of our executive session, this Commissioners Court may in open session take such action as appropriate on items discussed in executive session. At this time, we shall retire, Commissioners, to work on items B and C. I'm like a rapper. We're going to go back on the record at 5:46 out of executive session. And at this time, I'm going to take some guidance here from our county attorney, but I don't believe we have any action items at this time. Everything is going to proceed with all of the legal matters we discussed with the county attorney's office. And at this time, I would entertain a motion to, actually, the adjournment in memory. Is there anybody who has some, Commissioner Chesney, if you'll go forward. Commissioner Vaughn, do you have any? I don't. Commissioner Modis has one. Okay, let's go forward. Yes, please.
The first one is Mabel Hall McMillan Williams. Her daughter and I grew up together. Molly McMillan, it's now, I think it's Mandel. Anyway, Miss Williams passed away on February 11, 2019, and certainly want to offer my condolences to that family. Also to Antonio Tony Garcia, Corpus Christi, age 64, passed away in his home on Sunday, February 17th. He was a veteran of the U.S. Navy and served 27 years on the Corpus Christi Fire Department. So wanted to pass the condolences on to those two families.
I'm going to move to Commissioner Modis and let Commissioner Jag collect his thoughts. Commissioner Modis?
Sure. Yes, Clemente Lopez passed away February 16th, and he's father of Adolfo Lopez and Norma. He was employed with Nueces Co-op for 38 years.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yeah, I'm going to, Rufugia was born, Lucia Galvan, was born on July the 4th, 1925, passed away on Tuesday, February 2nd, 2019. She is the mother of Chief Galvan at the Sheriff's Department, and she will be missed by the family, and she was very much involved in her community in Mathis. So, the other one I have is Ms. Ludia de la Garza Picasso. She passed away Wednesday of last week, and she was a longtime resident of Corpus Christi, and her family and friends will miss her dearly. She was also very much involved in the community, and her son was employed with the Federal Bureau of Prisons in Three Rivers. May she rest in peace. That's it.
I'd like a motion to adjourn. Got it.
wanna stand in-
I'm sorry, we certainly do. A moment of silence, please, for those individuals. And may they rest in peace.
Gavel.
And motion to adjourn? Love that gavel.